Hello, hello, hello. Plan with me. March cover, part 2 of my bullet journal cover for March. Now, I am going to place this in my bullet journal. We did that in part 1. But before I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and do the word March for my cover for March. And I've already picked out my palette of pens. I decided it would be a little bit quicker to do it with my Tombow dual brush pens rather than doing it with watercolor. And plus I'm doing it straight into my journal instead of on watercolor paper. And my watercolor does not do as well in this journal as the markers do, or gouache. Gouache does really well in this journal. So I've picked out my palette. As you can see right there, I've got a scrap piece of paper so I can see what the colors are before I add them if I need to. Also, when I'm blending my markers, you can clean those markers tips off by just going over on that scratch piece of paper to clean it off, just like I just did there. You just rub it on there until the true color comes out. I've also using a blender. So what I've done is I've decided to do the top part of the letters a lot lighter and then have it sort of do an ombre, almost a gradual darkening, and at the bottom I have my really dark purple. So I've actually got 3 shades of purple here. I've got sort of a light pinky purple, a mid-tone lavender, and then a deep purple, and that's what I'm using to color in the letters of March. And I tried to do it in that Art Nouveau, Art Deco-y, that kind of vibe. Again, that's what I was inspired by. You know, that was popular up until the 1910, and then it kind of faded out. The style faded out, but then it had a revival in 1966. It's characterized by its beautiful, sinuous lines, its use of natural, organic objects like flowers, butterflies, dragonflies, flower buds, but it is all about the line in its purest form. But of course, I'm just using it as sort of an inspiration. So mine is not all about the line. Mine is a little bit more about color, a little bit more about design. So I'm just doing these letters in a nice ombre all the way down, light at top, dark at the bottom. And at the end, I am going to take one of my black liners and just go around the whole thing just to give it more structure. But I really enjoyed doing this one. I've just been dying to do something Art Nouveau. I love the style. It's really pretty. To me, it's very designerly. It was influenced by those expressive painters that had really expressive lines like Gauguin, Toulouse-Lautrec, Japanese prints that were very heavy on the line work. And it really had less to do about texture and color and those sort of things. Those took the subordinate role to the beautiful line work. But mine, I'm doing a little bit different because, of course, it's mine. I can do what I want, just like you do what you want in your bullet journal or on your piece of art. And that is perfectly fine. It's how it's supposed to be. You can just take an idea and expand on it in your own direction. As a matter of fact, I encourage that. So now I'm coming around and I am going around each letter with the border of this sort of pink purple. So I'm just going around the very edges of each letter. And that gives it a little bit more definition. It also gives it a little bit more depth. And I kind of like it. I think it's pretty. But you could do the inside part of your letters really pale lavender with the pink lavender and just save that really dark purple for the outline. But I just wanted to do it sort of the opposite. I wanted the darker colors to actually make up the letters and the outline to be in that pinky purple color. Now, if you are part of my Patreon, I will give you a list of the colors that I used for both the watercolor part 1 and the markers in this part 2. So you'll have a guide. You'll also have the outline drawings. If you're a paid member, the Dabblers, they get my premium content. So if you're interested in that, I'll link that below. but they will get the outline drawings so that they can trace it into their own bullet journal. They will also get the supply list, and as well as they will get a downloadable piece of art that they can download and print out themselves of the irises, of the part 1 irises. So I mean, you get a lot of stuff for $5 a month. You can't beat the value that I try to give everyone. So again, I just thought I'd mention that. I'll link it below. You can check into it. The next thing I do is I've decided to go in here with some different greens, a really pale green, and of course a medium green, and then a dark green. And I am just coloring in the leaves in the M and just sort of blending those greens together. Then I'm coming along into the A and doing the same thing. I am just coloring those in with some different shades of green. The outline is a dark green, then inside it's more of an olivey, yellowy green. And then I'm putting some yellow flowers over here in the R of the march, and just some nice sort of curvy lines for the stems of these flowers. And I'm making sure that I try to give those flowers some depth by doing a little bit of a light yellow and then more golden yellow around the edges as shadows. But again, at the end, I will take a liner and just outline this whole design to give it more structure. That black outline just gives it lots more structure. So that's what I'm going to do there. And just coloring in with different greens, these leaves, these vine-like stems. Putting in the shadows with some of that darker green right on top of the lighter green. I really like these colors because they blend really well right on the paper. My paper does get a little bit peely. It peels just a little bit using these markers because this is a bullet journal. It's not really an art journal, so the paper's not as thick as I would like it to be, which again is why I don't use watercolor with it. But it doesn't peel so much that it bothers me. Now I've just colored in some yellow flowers on the C. Now I'm doing in some pale green grapes on the H, and I'm just having those kind of drip down from some vines hanging off the crossbar of the H. Just taking those greens, those different colors of green, different shades of green, and coloring out all of the leaves and the foliage. Then just doing some outline work on the paler yellow so that gives them a little bit more definition. You can tell more that they're flowers, although it might be a little bit hard to see from this angle. Inside the center part, I just took a purple and just dotted bunches of dots to make it have a darker center. And that purple on top of that yellow, it went toward sort of a brown, it made sort of a brown color, so it worked out. And now I am just adding in some shadows on those grapes so that you can tell that they are grapes, and then just blending those all together so it softens up some of those shadows. And I'm being careful not to tear my paper up by adding too much marker, too much color. It will tear this paper. So I'm having to be mindful of that. And then I'm just coloring in the grape leaves with some different greens. Now, just like I did with the irises, I'm coming around here with a nice gold pen and doing the outline of the frame around it, and it is also a nice oval. I probably went overboard with the decoration for this March cover. I don't know what I was thinking, but probably went a little bit overboard with it, but I was just in the mood. And when I get in the mood, I just draw and draw until I'm satisfied. But you could probably cut this design down quite a bit and it would still be beautiful. Probably even look a little bit better and not so busy, but it is what it is, and this is how I did it, and I'm not gonna stress about it. Now for these corner decorations, I'm just coloring in the leaves with a pale green, then I'll come back with a little bit of a darker green into some of those shadow areas just to give it some depth and dimension. And just being really careful going around those. Then once I get all of that in there, I'm going to come in here and color the corner parts just like I painted in the irises on part 1. I painted every other one a different shade of purple, and that's the same thing I'm going to do here. I'm just using my markers. I'm doing a dark purple and the pinky purple, and I'm alternating those in the design. But I am starting with the dark purple as the center design, as the center little teardrop first, and then just doing every other one from there, and then filling it in with the pinks for the rest of the design. Once I've got that done, I'm also coloring in these little flowers that are actually connecting the frame to the corners and to the bottom of the page. Again, just using 2 different shades of purple, a darker purple and then the pinky purple for those. They're sort of tulip-like flowers. They look a little bit like tulips. They're just really flower shapes. They're made-up flowers. They're not actual realistic flowers, just a shape. And so once we get all of those in, then we will go around that area with some of the gold to connect it all together to that frame. It's really easy. Again, I probably used too bright of a gold for this, just like I did in the other one for the part 1. But since I already started with the part 1 gold, I just went ahead with it. I didn't try to change it up because they're going to be side by side. Even though one is watercolor and one is marker, I want them to at least look like they go together. Now, they are not going to match in colors because these markers, I believe, are dye-based. They have dye in them, and that is an automatically brighter color than you'll get from the pigment-based watercolors. So they're going to be a tiny bit brighter, but it's still the same color family, the same color palette. And I just wanted to go ahead and stick with that so that it'll be all uniform. We want our colors to be uniform. We want the design to be as uniform as possible. Again, if I had it to do over, I would not put so many intricate designs in here. I would have cleaned this design up and cut a lot of this out. I didn't, so here we are. But you can take note, and if you decide to do something like this in your bullet journal, then you'll know the mistakes I made of over decorating it, and just pare some of those decorations back some and make it a simpler design. But again, it's up to you. I am from the Victorian era. I think that in another life I was Victorian, because I just believe too much is not enough. You just pile on the ornate patterns and decorations. I love that look, and that was part of my influence here. Then we're going to tape this down, trim the corners, and that will be our cover for our bullet journal. So let's flip through and I will show you what we've got so far. We've got the cover, and I have already put in that iris painting. Then we have the March layout, the calendar layout, and it was a pretty simple design. And then of course my monthly content, I always like to do sort of a double page for that. That's my same layout I do for everyone because it works so well. And then my weekly layout, which is another simple layout. It's all in the same color theme. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, my dabblers in my Patreon group, they will get the outline drawing as well as the supply list for this and some tips on how to do it. And thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Give me a thumbs up, share it with a friend.